Dr. Nancy, and this is Dr. Nancy Knows, your medical celebrity doctor, the talk show that inspires, motivates, and brings inspiration to many communities across our nation. We do that not only through my 25 years of experience, but through bringing individuals that are experts in their field of industry to come on the show and talk about how they are impacting their circle of influence. We also bring celebrities on the show every once in a while. Be sure to tune in to Dr. Nancy Knows on our new network, NGC Network, and all social media podcast platforms. Keyword Dr. Nancy Knows. Today, we have Mark Warlick. He is the CEO and founder of National Real Estate Recyclers. Mark, it's so nice to have you here today.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me.
Well, listen, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. Everybody is, the market is hot right now for selling, and we're in a pandemic, and a lot of people are still suffering economically as well. And your specialty is in real estate planning and reverse marketing. When individuals find themselves in a potential foreclosure situation, they have someone to turn to.
Right. Yeah. So, I do quite a bit of work with reverse mortgage foreclosures. And typically that occurs when elderly person has a reverse mortgage and they pass away. And one of the things I try to do, or one of the things I do, is that I work with the heirs so that they're able to get something out of the property. Typically, when it comes to reverse mortgages and it gets to the foreclosure process, the heirs generally just say, oh, let's give it back to the bank. Well, they actually have three options. One, they can buy it, refinance it. No one ever does that. They can give it back to the bank, which my guess is probably 80% of the people go through that process. The third option is to actually sell it themselves. So I basically come to them and say, hey, listen, I can get you X number of dollars for this particular property. That makes a whole lot more sense. And what I'll also do is I'll actually pay for the probate process in order to relieve them of that kind of expense and time, et cetera.
Well, that's really great, helpful information. With the pandemic, there has been a lot of traumatic experiences and loss across the country globally. And, families of heirs, they don't know where to turn to. And giving the home back to the bank is not always the best option.
That's exactly right. And I must say at the same time, when it comes to dealing with the families, the ideal situation is while the parents are still alive to actually do what's called a beneficiary deed. And what that allows the family, the heirs to actually do is that allows the property to get passed to the heirs without having to go through the probate process. So there's no cost or time associated. Now, these beneficiary deeds, every state doesn't recognize them. However, 26 of the 50 states, including the District of Columbia, Washington, D.C., does. So, it's one of those things that is a very inexpensive thing to do from an estate planning standpoint, but a very beneficial thing to do. And frankly, it takes away a lot of, sometimes families are have conflicts, so they can actually, the parents can actually resolve all of those kinds of issues before they pass away.
So how does an individual bring up the conversation of mom, dad, do you have a deed of beneficiary? Or is this something that is a part of, when you buy a mortgage, is it a part of that process?
There's certainly an educational aspect to component to deal with. Yes, family members, typically whoever, there's always a leader, we'll say, within the heirs that can have those kinds of discussions with their parents or parent to say, hey, listen, this is something that typically can be done for less than $50, and then have it recorded at the county recorder. So it's a very, very inexpensive thing to do. But just to bring it up and say, hey, we can do however, we can allow the property to go to whoever you want it to do. Just fill out this piece of paperwork, get it notarized, I'll get it recorded, and then recorded with the county recorder. And, it's pretty simple.
Well, that's awesome. Having a trust, I had to figure out who was going to be my
Hmm.
medical power of attorney, who would be, acting on my behalf with the business as well, and I believe also my house
Hmm.
too. Is it something similar to that?
Yes, not as extensive.
Hmm.
A trust, you probably worked with an attorney and went through quite a bit
Hmm.
of work to put that into place, along with your medical power of attorney and all those kinds of things. This is typically a 1 or 2 page document that you can actually handwrite in the information, the property, the owners, the beneficiaries or heirs, and literally have that then recorded. You
That's
know,
great information. If you are a business owner and you want to make sure that there may be a deed of beneficiary as it's tied to your home, is that something that could be tied in with that as a
no,
business owner?
not actually with the business, just with real estate, and typically it's the primary residence.
I get it. Okay.
Hmm.
Now, listen, there are many people that may need your services. How does an individual get in touch with you?
Several ways. I'm, on all the social media platforms. You can also find my business page, National Real Estate Recyclers, on both Facebook and Instagram. I'm actually on the Better Business Bureau, so you can find me there. Do some research as to how I do business and what people say about me and those kinds of things.
I saw that last night when I
Yeah,
was doing my research as well. That's pretty important as a business owner to be tied with some credible organizations that can vouch for your reputation.
absolutely. And this is a reputation business. And frankly, one of the things that uh, I value my reputation over anything else. So I just think it is important because a lot of times I'm dealing with people who don't know me. So, it's like, hey, go out and do some research. And I'm proud of what I've done. And, that's beneficial.
Well, let's
Mhm.
talk about that. Let's reel it back a little bit. Your passion. How did you get involved in real estate planning?
A good, very good question. So, I came to Phoenix right out of college, and I bought my first property. I think it was probably, I'm going to say 4 months out of college, and it was um, it was really interesting because uh, having moved and like that, I moved to Phoenix because I wanted to make the most real money. And I really liked the environment here. I was working for Motorola at the time. They had this rotational program that allowed me to be in several different areas for the first year of my career. So anyway, I got here, bought my first place, had a couple of roommates, bought a couple of more places, moved and things like that. But it just became part of my blood. Growing up, I can remember our family, we would drive around into Beverly Hills and Hollywood and look at houses. That was something that my dad and mom really enjoyed doing. And out of that experience, who knew that they were actually planting seeds? And that's exactly what happened.
Well, you were inspired at an early age,
Yes.
and it's not every day that individuals right out of college buy real estate. So, who has poured into you? Who's been your mentors in your life?
Well, so this great question. Um, I would really say that when it came to a mentorship, yeah, I had some people in my career and like that, but the real mentors and didn't occur until I had some real challenges. And the first place was I found this great church in Los Angeles. You may have heard of Agape International Spiritual Center, Reverend Dr. Michael Beckwith. And then after that, and I've been working with another spiritual group called Circles of Light Ministries, and Dr. Caroline Fuqua. And, having, so everything I do is spiritually based. I'm one of those reap what you sow kind of guys. And everybody says, speak it into existence. I say, well, if it exists, you spoke it. you know?
Well, you change the energy and the atoms and the atmosphere when you do speak it. And you
Hmm.
spoke about a challenge, right? And
Hmm.
we all have a story and
Sure.
a testimony to share with individuals to say, listen, I've overcome. These are people that have poured into my life, and this is how I did it.
Hmm.
What would you like to share?
Let's see. I think the first part was the you know ending of my first marriage or my only marriage. So that was a very difficult time. And once that happened, that's shortly after that, I then found Agape, started doing the real estate thing, left the corporate world, the high technology marketing kinds of stuff that I did, left that world and started doing the real estate thing full time. Then we got to the 2007, 2008 meltdown,
Hmm.
which turned out to be a very, very painful thing for me. And, basically had to start all over. And heard other people talk about being homeless. I called it being home free. So, so I literally for 7 years was house sitting for one of my real estate buddies where I would literally move into houses that they were rehabbing and flipping and I would stay there until they found a buyer, and then we'd move on to the next place. So that was again, a very difficult time. But what I actually learned, which is the funniest thing, but what I actually learned is that you don't actually have to pay for housing. And so fast forward, after doing all of that for 7 years, I then moved to Phoenix. I ended up finding a place, this little condo. And it was one of those situations where it was a tax foreclosure. I found the owner, paid him a few $1,000s, and actually took over the property. Because it turned out that the bank actually forgave the loan. So this guy moved out of the place, even though it was actually free and clear. I gave him a few $1,000s. I was able to move in. So now I'm actually sitting in a place or owning a place and living in a place that I don't have to pay for. So I went from not having to pay for my house sitting to not having to pay for a house that I live
So, everything is perspective.
in.
And, that situation that you were dealt, you were creative and innovative in that style. And it got you through, you persevered, and you were blessed with your
Yes.
own piece of property. So I see where your passion comes from.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's oftentimes through our mistakes that we learn from and grow from and become passionate about what not to do and instill into others to say, hey, listen, it's okay. It's okay. We're all gonna, make mistakes and trip up. But the key is not to stay there, not to stay in that space or place and that head space, right?
Mhm.
It is to keep yourself encouraged, surround yourself around people that can pour into you to motivate you and encourage you.
Mhm.
So that's key.
Absolutely. And I don't actually believe in even mistakes anymore. They're just opportunities to learn. And whatever ends up happening, it's like either I can learn or I can repeat. And that's just what ends up happening. Yeah, there's opportunities sometimes where I can learn from someone else. But at the end of the day, what ends up coming to me is just that, just that, and I can share that. And like there was right before the debacle, the real estate debacle, there were people were throwing money at me, and what I learned out of that, yeah, it's great to be able to do that, but um, when the market turns, then it becomes very difficult. There's difficult conversations that need to happen. So to this day, I'm not interested at all in actually investing other people's money for them. It's like, no, you can do that yourself. And if you can't, you know,
Well, we live and we learn, actually.
exactly.
The housing bust in 2005, 2007. Now we're in COVID, and we live in a state where, worldwide, countrywide, it is a buyer's market. Like, everything is available, but the chain,
Mhm.
there's the houses that are, you can't get what you want, and it's a premium, right?
Right.
So we're in that time. I think that reinventing yourself and
Hmm.
believing in yourself and creating new opportunities is key and important. I want to ask you about individuals that may want to get into the line of business that you do.
Hmm.
Are you looking for any assistance? And what pitfalls would you say to an individual to look out for as they migrate?
Right. So, I'm always open to having mentees or anyone that I can help with the business. People certainly have helped me all along the way. As far as pitfalls, um, you know, I I think the number one pitfall is people do stuff for money, and the challenge is to actually do the stuff you love. And it seems simple, but that changes everything. Because when you do stuff you love, you're actually going to do an excellent job, and it won't be work. So now you're in a position of doing excellent work, doing an excellent job, and you're not working. But because the work you do is excellent, people will pay you a premium for it.
That's exactly right.
So, I mean, for example, so what happens with me is I actually like talking to people and I like problem solving. And I get paid well for that. And it just happens to be in real estate. That's what it is.
That's really good. I often say, in business and our networking events, you have to find someone that does what you don't have time to do and or has a stronger passion in too, because together, that's when magic happens.
Absolutely.
That's when magic happens. And when you're passionate about something that you do, it doesn't feel like work at the end of the day.
Right.
So it shouldn't be money driven, although money is necessary. But when you put love first and, your heart first, everything else falls into place.
Exactly. And that's really the message that I think sometimes some people get it reversed. And it's like, so I tell you a quick story. My son his passion is dance. And he decided to actually, when he got out of high school, to go to Alvin Ailey's dance school in New York. And, it was just amazing to see him go from, dancing in his bedroom with the door closed to literally on stage and doing what he loved. And that was actually an inspiration for me to get out of the corporate, just having a job, to actually doing the stuff I loved. And it was like I said, it was inspiring. And to this day, yeah, he's my son, but we're having a conversation. We're equal in this whole relationship. So.
That's great. It's important to have someone to look up to and aspire to that motivates you as well. And then first and foremost, you have to be your own cheerleader and pour
Absolutely.
into yourself and believe that you are enough and can do it at the end of the day.
Right.
So it's such a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you very much.
Can you leave us with an inspirational quote, something that you live by?
You know what? There's this little book. It's like a $3 book on Amazon. It's called As a Man Thinketh. That book is pure gold. It's maybe 20 or 30 pages, and it's small format, so you can read it really quickly. But by reading that book, you take control of your life. You become responsible for your life. And I can't recommend that book high enough.
That's great.
Yeah.
So if we all just do our own part individually, the world would be such a better place.
Well, my world is great, and I do my part for my world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So listen, it was such a pleasure to have you on the show, Mark. Love having you here.
Thank you very much.
So
Appreciate it.
remember, it is not only what Dr. Nancy knows, but it's who she knows. We'll talk next week. Bye for now.